Hi, friends. Thank you for joining us again. This is Sunil Chandy, and we're on Food for Thought, our daily program out of Christ Episcopal Church, and we thank you for being with us today. Today, I am actually speaking from my office, where usually I speak from the church or from my home, but now since after being vaccinated and the church being fully open, starting to engage in trying to do this podcast in different places. And so this is one place that we might every now and then come back to. And look, I even set up the bookshelf and everything, and I have a little globe with the hand in the hand, God's hand, holding the globe in my, that little thing that I have, and these other little trinkets all over the place. So maybe we could talk about that one of these days. But Ben says that the office looks amazing. Yes, and I got to thank our property committee chair, Barbara Capalbo, and of course, Christy Allardyce, who has helped me re-envision this office. And it's a wonderful thing. It takes a village. I always know this and acknowledge this, that it takes a village to do the work of the church. And of course, it takes a village to work with Sunil Chandy. Yes. Yeah. Anyway, thank you for being with us. And if you are here with us today, connecting with us, please tell us that you're here. This show was initially instituted just to help us deal with the particular challenge of COVID-19. And we've learned a lot of things over this time. And one of the things that we've learned is that we love connecting with you, and we loved sharing wisdom. All the people that work on this program. And today we have our guest is our normal guest who comes every 2 weeks, and it's Sharon Younkin. And Sharon is going to, hello, Jean, good to see you. Sharon is going to provide us wisdom and help us to see things differently. And so I really don't have much else to say in terms of other food for thought for today. And so, Ben, if you could just simply bring Sharon on board, it'd be great. Hi, Sharon.
Father Sunil. Hello. Hello.
How are you doing? I love it.
I was like, oh, that was fast. Yes.
I know. Hello too.
Oh, hello, everybody.
So it's always great seeing you, Sharon. And yet, and this Sunday you gave me a gift. You actually came to church in person, and you brought your daughter and your mother and your and
stepfather, my partner Patrick.
And your stepfather, and it was just wonderful to meet all of them in person. It was a joy.
Yes.
And it was, of course, a great joy to see you in person. It's just, but it feels like we meet each other almost weekly or every other week. It didn't feel like we were too far away from each other. And I just want to thank you for coming in person.
Sure. Yeah. No, it's so true, isn't it? I mean, it was interesting because I feel very connected to you because we've stayed connected the entire pandemic, even though we haven't been seeing each other physically.
Yeah.
And so it was sort of like, hey, I miss you, but I don't, because I've been seeing you and talking with you and and sharing this experience of the pandemic. And I guess that's a credit to what we talk about with loneliness, that if you can share your feelings in a way where there's deep listening, you don't feel lonely.
Wow. That's interesting. That is, that's true. It rings true to me,
Yeah.
And I know that we've been sharing, and there have been a lot of deep listening moments for me, and I think for our guests that brought on board too, and it was just, and for the people who have been connecting with us too.
Right. I think there has been a lot of deep listening, and so I think that makes a big difference in terms of whether or not we feel lonely.
Yeah, definitely. And I also love the fact that this Sunday we had our full choir
Yeah.
you know, and it was just lovely. And you're in the choir, and
Mm.
tell me about that experience a little bit. Tell me how you felt.
Yeah, that was beautiful. I think for me too, when we had our first choir rehearsal, which was on June 3rd. And yeah, let me tell you a little bit about this because I think this is I'm still trying to put words on it because it's extremely profound. You know, I've only been singing with the choir for 3 years, but this choir some folks have been singing together for more than 50 years.
Yeah.
I remember there was one rehearsal where people were saying, "Oh, Mr. Ken, I don't think we've ever sung this song before." And he said, "Oh, no, we did 55 years ago." And
Remember.
I remember, and I thought to myself, "Oh my goodness, I'm not in Kansas anymore." I had only been singing with the choir for maybe a year, and they were talking about something that they had sung 55 years ago together. So, uh, I think it was, um, very moving, that first rehearsal, for a lot of reasons. Of course, we did lose one of our choir members, um, Meg. So there's a palpable sense of, her missing because she had such a big presence, I think, for everyone. Um, However, there was also, I think, this feeling of gratitude that, oh my goodness, look at how many we have an older choir. I'm probably one of the youngest choir members, I think. And so we have a lot of people in their 70s. George Ken is, I think, 85. And I think for me, there was this feeling of, just pride in terms of how we navigated the pandemic. And then for me, I felt a lot of gratitude for your leadership, for George Kent's leadership, because you really, I think, tried to follow the science, and you tried to you made it was good decision making all along, even though it was tough, and there were times when we had to make sacrifices and we couldn't be together. But I think it was worth it to see people in this older age bracket who have numerous medical challenges, for the large part, come through safely and be able to sing again. It was kind of miraculous that way for me.
Yeah. No, I did. I really didn't think of it that way, but you're absolutely right. I mean,
Mm.
because we did what we did. Uh, we have people that we have safe and secure
Yeah.
singing with us. I mean, that's a wonderful insight.
And
Yes.
there was a lot of emotion in the room. There were certain choir members, I think, who were really struck by that, just how feeling this, sense of gratitude too, and just that's a bit miraculous, really, and just the idea that we were singing again, which was kind of surreal. I think there were points when I don't know, it kind of felt like, are we ever going to sing again in a group? And
I've got to tell you, my mother was watching the service, and she said, "My God, the choir just, I mean, the way the camera panned out onto them as you all filed in from the slide into the church, into the sanctuary, and it was just beautiful. I mean, I
mm,
think, I we've one of the things that I know is that as a family, sometimes when we go through challenging situations, it has those situations either can break us or can draw us together. And I think this challenging situation helped me to realize how much we've been drawn together by God.
yeah,
And, and the choir is one aspect of it, but all of these other folks, I mean, George Kent, amazing, but the leadership of the wardens, the vestry, the lay
yeah.
ministers, the lay readers, and now the camera team, you know,
Yes.
you
You
know,
know, I did watch because now it's like, oh, wow, I can actually listen to the choir because I'm never able to hear the music really because I'm singing in the choir. But it was interesting to see, wow, there's a camera up in the choir loft.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, wow. You see
Yeah.
choir members up there singing now.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it was very, and it was interesting for me to watch that back, like seeing us as we, came in, we processed, and yeah.
And I'll tell you, eventually those cameras will go away because we've just gotten a grant, and
Mm,
we're going to be having stationary cameras, which are going to be in. I mean, they're not going to be as visible,
mm.
and so we'll have images of people, but you won't see the cameras as much anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a different experience too. So it was reentry and also in a different kind of way. Um, but kind of incorporating some of the really, I think, wonderful things that we learned. And so yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, the way that the different camera, now it's kind of like, but I think that's nice because it really brings the experience to folks who can't be there physically. And I think that's one of the things that I've discovered through the mental health ministry and our ability to do the telehealth. It's the same thing, right? That there were so many people who didn't have access
Yeah.
to help. Um, one of the things that we discovered is that there were certain numbers that we were expecting to be higher and lower. And I think because of one of the theories is because we've been reaching out to people through telehealth, we've been keeping people safer, and and that has been making a difference to this connection and outreach. And I think it's the same with the work that you do, Father Sunil, that there are people who are lonely, there are people who need that connection, and this is a really important ministry still because there were lots of people who we were not getting to
Yeah.
before
No.
the pandemic. And so now they get to also really experience the music in a different kind of way.
Yeah. I think we've got a definite following online. We've got a definite people are connecting to us in powerful ways, and they can't necessarily be in church on Sunday because they're all from all over the world. Sometimes they're from all over the country and different parts of the world, and of course there are people who are. I mean, Dale is watching, right?
Yeah.
Dale couldn't make it to church sometimes because of situations in her life, and
Mm,
now she's almost on. She's like a church mouse. She's almost on every day.
yeah, that's wonderful. That's
Yeah, and
wonderful.
it's
Mhm,
a new way of connecting. I mean, I think
mhm.
God, in my vantage point, my faith tells me that God has helped us to lean into the challenge, to learn, to grow from it, and now we're reaping some of those benefits, but we're also there's a lot of distinctions that have been made. We understand, and so now we're able to kind of focus our ministries in particular ways.
Definitely. It's
Yeah,
like taking the church out into the community and taking um, information about mental health and access to mental health out into the community. These have been these are really needed sources right now and for
you know,
help and
I,
resources.
this past Sunday, I was so tempted to talk a little bit about mental health because
Mm.
the gospel lesson almost lent it to it because Jesus is has been was almost called crazy by his family because
Mm.
he was doing some things that were really seemed outrageous to them, right?
Yeah.
And actually, the Greek turns out that they said that we think he's crazy, right? And they were trying to get him home. And I was thinking about, okay, let's see if we might be able to get to talk a little bit about mental health, maybe even talk about how important it is to start uh, to do counseling, and then we have that the I think I think the tennis open, the U.S. Open, was it? The French Open, the French,
Mm.
with the tennis player who bowed out.
Right, right.
You know,
Yes, because of depression.
depression. I think,
Mhm.
but we didn't. But I didn't know exactly how to crystallize my thoughts around that just yet.
Yeah, I thought it was good. I thought it was a good start though, because you were talking, I was listening very intently during that part when you were talking about the 6 steps to having
Strong families.
a strong family, essentially.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I think a lot of those steps are important for and having a strong relationship of any sort. And then I liked the way you made the connection to the church family
yeah. Um,
too, because I think those are things that we've been doing, really trying to foster good communication and frequency,
yeah,
right? Having regular contact.
yeah,
Those were 2 of the points I remember you talking about.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think part of it is that the church is so important because, and I like the idea about it being a master class in which Jesus is the teacher,
Mm,
learning us, helping us to learn how to be transformed.
yes.
We might then go and
Mm,
transform those other places in the world, like our families, and then also
yes.
those other teams and associations that we have.
Yes, it's like that series I was talking about last week, last time we met 2 weeks ago, The Me You Can't See, where Prince Harry quotes, and I've heard this before, but "What you don't transform, you transmit."
Yeah,
And so this whole idea about inner transformation, which I think, like you say, is very much about the journey of Jesus, and it's also very much the journey of mental health,
yeah,
the inner transformation. Um, and that's, we've been talking kind of about coming through this pandemic and using it as an opportunity to work on yourself, which brings me to a topic that I think we've mentioned this topic before, but I was going to talk a little bit more in depth about it, which is self-compassion.
yes.
Because as we re-enter, and there's a lot of the thing that I really love about where we are in the field of psychology is that we've taken these soft concepts, if you will, and we've supported them with evidence and research. And believe it or not, there's a lot of good research to support that self-compassion is much more effective than self-criticism or perfectionism.
That's
And
good to hear.
so it's good to hear, right? Because I think we have this idea that somehow we are copping out if we're compassionate with ourselves. We have to be really hard on ourselves. But the research really goes counter to all of that. And so as we come back out and we re-enter, I think it's important for us to not compare ourselves to others, right? We've all been through this really tough situation, but we've not all had the same circumstances. Um, and so, what I'm talking about today is the importance of self-compassion, about reentry and the risks of self-criticism and perfectionism, and that these evidence-based techniques can help us transform our self-worth and build resilience. So, um, though all been through the same event, we've not had the same stressors. Some of us have lost loved ones. Some of us have lost jobs. Some of us have had experienced increased challenges with our mental health. Maybe we've had weight gain or increased use of alcohol or challenges with sleep, changes in relationships because of the strain of the pandemic. And so it's, I think, a dangerous thing to compare ourselves and to expect others to have the same experience that we're having. If you're somebody who's better able to bounce back, maybe you didn't have as many of the challenges during the pandemic, to still remember to have compassion for others. And if you're somebody who is having a harder time, to make sure that you are self-compassionate with yourself during this time. And so what do I mean by self-compassion? Well, Dr. Kristen Neff would say it's treating yourself the way you would treat a good friend. And so talking to yourself the way you would talk to a good friend who's having some struggles right now. Um, in particular, we think of 3 elements: self-kindness, common humanity, and mindfulness. And so to remember not to turn to self-judgment when you're struggling, but to turn more to kindness, and to remember that um, that it's the human condition to go through challenges and have struggles and to suffer. And so if you're having some sort of challenge, there are other people out there who are also. And then to be mindful if you're struggling and having a hard time, and to be caring and compassionate for yourself. So I want you to hear all of the things that research shows that self-compassionate can help us to do. If you are self-compassionate with yourself, you are more likely to engage in perspective taking. So you rather than focusing solely on your own problems, you actually are more in tune with other people when you're self-compassionate. You're better able to cope with tough situations like divorce, trauma, or chronic pain. You're able to give more to others in relationships. You engage in healthier behaviors like exercise, eating well, drinking less. You admit mistakes rather than blame others. And you're motivated to reach goals because you care about reaching your full potential. So we know all of this from the research. This is not just me saying, oh, we've actually studied this. We know for a fact that your motivation is better when you are self-compassionate with yourself. Because people who are, it's interesting, there's this whole physiology that actually happens with criticism. Criticism is a physiological response. When we have the fight or flight response that gets activated when we feel threatened. So if we make a mistake, or if we don't do something so well, we feel threatened. Well, what happens with criticism is our fight or flight response views ourselves as being attacked because we've made a mistake and there's a threat. And then we view ourselves as the person who made the mistake. So we attack ourselves. And we criticize ourselves harshly.
Yeah.
This is all like kind of, it's like the fight or flight response gone wrong. And so when you are self-compassionate and gentle with yourself, you downregulate that fight or flight response, and you're able to actually think and problem solve in a calm and effective way. You're not just reacting to the physiology of self-criticism. So
I love that idea. I mean, I know, like, sometimes in my, my self-talk sometimes can be very negative. Should have done this. You could have done this. All of these things. And I remember, and I'll tell you, every morning sometimes, and I've talked about it before, that conversation happens early in the morning. It's the first thing in my mind. And then what happens to me is I get a reset when I go back into morning prayer. I'm recentering myself on not what I think about myself and how I compared with everyone else, but I reset myself. Usually reading scripture helps me to realize that God, it's that other person that in that conversation that says, no, you're worthy. You're worthy simply because of who you are, because of, and that then launches my mind away from the self-talk that's negative,
Yeah, I think that's what mindfulness does. We talk about mindful self-compassion. We are coming out of our head where we're caught in this struggle with the fight or flight response. We're battling the self-criticism. We're stuck in our head. And you come down into your body and you're mindful. You're mindful through your five senses. You're connected to the present moment, the room you're in, what you're experiencing in that moment. It helps you to break free and to regulate and get out of that loop that people can get caught in of self-criticism.
It's interesting there because the mindfulness that I find when I'm practicing the mindfulness and breathing and getting down into the body, and just all of a sudden I start to feel grateful because I'm sensing all of the different things that are happening in this universe, and I'm saying, "Oh my God, it's so great!" I mean, I'm breathing, I'm thinking about and it's a joyful experience because it then takes me away from this either thinking about all of my past mistakes or worried about my future. It just
Right.
helps me just appreciate the now.
Yes. Yes. And I picked up, I've been reading the book you had recommended a while ago, living Buddha, living Christ. And so it's very interesting. There's a great passage on mindfulness. Mindfulness relieves suffering because it's filled with understanding and compassion. So whether we are understanding toward others or understanding toward ourselves, mindfulness is part of that, I think, being understanding towards ourselves and towards others. When you are really there, like mindful in the moment, there, present, not stuck in your worry thoughts, not stuck in your self-criticism, you're showing your loving kindness and understanding that the energy of the Holy Spirit is in you.
Yeah.
I thought that was an interesting description.
Yeah. No. Thich Nhat Hanh, who wrote that book, is just an amazing, amazing writer and an amazing thought leader. And he was nominated for the Nobel Prize by Martin Luther King Jr.
Right.
And that book, Living Buddha, Living Christ, I think came out of his conversations with Christian thinkers, Thomas Merton, Catholic, and so they were talking about Buddhism and they were talking also about mindfulness and Christianity, and and all of these spiritual traditions have some elements of things that are very similar in all aspects of it, right? In terms of helping us to access our spirituality. There's a passage in the Gospel of Matthew where Jesus says, "Why do you worry? Right? Look at the birds of the air, the flowers of the field. They don't worry, and yet your Father, they die today and are gone tomorrow, but they don't worry. They live. They express their beauty. It's as if Jesus was saying, why get yourself caught up into the future? Why get caught up into the past? Look at this beautiful universe that God has given you and be mindful of it. Enjoy the present.
Yeah.
And,
and there's no better time to do that right now, too, as we come out and we re-enter. I think yesterday during the service, we were talking about the choir being back. And I think I was just really focusing on just trying to be really present.
Yeah. I mean, it's a beautiful experience. I mean, also so being present, I think it connects us to being, I love that connection to being kind. I mean, if we are present in the moment, right? Even in that church service, there are people who are wearing masks and there are people who are not, right? Some folks feel very, comfortable because they've been vaccinated the first and second dose, and other people, even though they're vaccinated the first and second dose, they still are a little bit apprehensive.
Yeah.
And so if you're mindful of that, you also understand their perspective, how this has been such a traumatic experience for all of us.
Right.
And just saying, okay, it's okay. Do what you need to do in order to access God's presence at this moment,
Yeah, we're going to have different ways, different comfort levels, different ways of coming back, different ways of things that we may have to overcome, or maybe some of us might need a little more help or assistance with that, and that's okay. Being mindful, being, knowing if that's the case for you, if you do need a little bit more help or support, maybe as you question what's driving me, is this fear? I keep asking myself, for me, from the beginning, my approach has been follow the science. That's just me, as a clinician, as an individual, follow the science, not the anxiety. And so probably because I'm a little bit more on the careful side, that was easy in the beginning. But now it's now, as I'm saying, follow the science and not the fear. I was like, okay, well, I'm fully vaccinated. The choir's fully vaccinated. There's part of me that thinks, oh my God, the worst thing to do would be to sing in a room full of like 30 people. But I keep, I'm like, no, from the beginning, I've said to myself and my clients, follow the science, not the fear. And so that's sort of what my journey is right now. But I understand people have their different, and there are different levels, times when you may be facing anxiety or discomfort, and uh,
Right.
everyone's journey is different.
Right. And so, and in terms of church leadership and in terms of leadership in any capacity, it's just being able to understand that people are different and will approach this experience differently, and then to be not only be compassionate with them, and then be kind, to help them move along and to help them move to where they need to be.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
And and actually, that where they need to be is actually a choice that they have to make, and not where,
Mhm.
like an external. Well,
Yeah.
you need to not wear a mask or anything. No, it's
Yeah.
where your comfort is, where your spirit moves you
Mhm.
gently.
Yeah, and folks are gonna have differences socially as they integrate. Maybe some people feel a little bit more uncomfortable or fearful socially, or maybe they developed depression during this time and they're struggling a bit with that. They're having a hard time with that. So these are the kinds of things for us to be aware of and compassionate with ourselves and compassionate with others. If we're compassionate with ourselves, we will also take action to get the support we need, because we will think that we deserve to have that if we need it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Well, Sharon, every time I talk to you, I gain new pieces of
mm,
wisdom and new insight, and I know that people struggle with this idea about reentry.
yes.
And I think you offer us some wonderful wisdom about being mindful about
Hmm.
what our fears are, what our frustrations are, and also being mindful of people who are at different stages of their reentry. You know,
Hmm.
and then to have compassion.
Hmm. Right. To be a loving witness and to be, remember back to the me you can't see. I quoted the one doctor who said that we know with mental health challenges that folks who are supported by their family members in a loving way, and then in a loving way the family members help them to problem solve. So first we want to validate, we want to be there mindful of someone's emotional experience, and then move to problem solving, but to not be critical of ourselves or critical of each other right now.
Yeah,
Criticism is the fight or flight response, kind of out of control and misfiring and focusing on in a way that's not going to be helpful to any of us during this process.
yeah.
So,
Well, Sharon, I appreciate you coming on the show, and I hope you'll continue to do that, because I think we're going to continue to do this ministry. I think it's an important ministry as we connect with many more people from outside of this region and also from this region. And even today, I just saw Betsy Rice come back on board. Betsy Rice was a senior.
oh, Betsy.
Yeah, and she said namaste, and
Yeah.
she's in Philadelphia, but she's able to connect with because we have this show, and technology allows us to do so. So I hope that you will continue to be with us as we engage in all of the work that we do. And Ben just says namaste, bestie, namaste, Betsy shirts. I beg you.
Yes, I agree. I
I know.
agree.
We're gonna think
Yeah.
about merchandise
Yeah.
this podcast. Anyway,
I think I'm very excited as we continue to move forward, because I think what the pandemic is opening this area of discussion for folks, and it's this I view it like you do as a ministry, and we need to keep talking about mental health. And so I'm here. I'm on it.
all
I'm
right,
on it, Father Sunil, as long as you are too. I'm in for it.
all
So
right. Well, thank you, Sharon.
yeah,
Thank you for all that you do, and God bless you.
you too.
All right, bye. Isn't she great? And so this is our time is ending now. We actually went a little bit 5 minutes over it, but uh, as is our tradition, let's end our time with prayer. And this is the prayer that's adapted from one by Bishop Thomas Brown of Maine. The Lord be with you. Let us pray. Jesus Christ, you traveled to towns and villages, curing every disease and illness. At your command, the sick were made well. Come to our aid now in the midst of the global spread of the coronavirus. Heal those who are sick with the virus. May they regain their strength to quality medical care. Heal us from our fear, which prevents nations from working together and neighbors from helping one another. Be present with those in authority who are making hard decisions. Support the medical professionals, emergency responders, counselors, and caregivers. We ask this all in your name, Jesus. Amen. Join with me in the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Friends, go in peace to love and serve God. Spread the light of Christ, the light of hope and joy to the world around you. The world needs it right now.
Thanks for watching. Did you know that you can join Christ Church from anywhere in the world? If you're feeling connected to what we're doing, email us today at communicate@christchurchwesterly.org.